Shop the Sherwin-Williams Super Sale and get 40% off paints and stains September 19th through the 24th. With prices starting at $29.39, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Pro Savings Days are back at Lowe's. My Lowe's Pro Rewards members save even more with limited-time doorbuster deals. Save $5 on 24-count Contractor's Choice 42-gallon trash bags, now just $14.78. Plus, get your choice select DeWalt Elite Series saw blades for $9.98. Not a Pro Rewards member? Join for free today at Lowe's. Valid through 9/17. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowes.com/terms for details. Subject to change.
Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
You gotta be confident about your Achilles.
Chase Thornton.
Yeah, I mean, I got him at 2.
And Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Well, welcome back into another episode of Operation Domination. As always, I'm your host, Dan Mater. Make sure you download us on your favorite podcast app. And if you want to check out our video content, all you have to do is go to our YouTube channel, the Fantasy Football Advice Network at FF Advice Net, to catch all of our content and everybody else's, which is helping you win your leagues. And that's what we are doing here today. That's why I have the one, the only, the great, the host of Injureless Podcast, Dr. Brian Scott, in the building. What's going on, Brian?
What up, Dan? All right, we got lots to talk about tonight.
Yeah, we gotta burn through this. So I'm gonna dispense with the pleasantries, because this list just got high profile and deep fast heading into week 3. So first of all, let's just kick it off with a guy that we know is not going to play this week, but I want to get your take on it. Joe Burrow, toe. The toe has been the plague of the season thus far.
Yeah, all of a sudden, like within the last week. Joe Burrow, man, what do you say? The guy, just every 2 years, like clockwork, he's got something serious going on that's going to take a lot of time off his career. And, they're calling it a turf toe. They're saying surgery is expected / needed. I don't know if they've actually come out yet and said that they have a date of the surgery in mind, but they're saying 3 months, and I think that is very optimistic. I think this is season ending. Let me just tell you, with turf toe injuries, it has to be a really severe injury for them to do surgical reconstruction on this, or surgical repair. While we hear a lot about this injury, it's not often surgically treated. It's pretty rare that you get a severe grade 3 injury like this. I will say that watching the video of him getting hurt was a very classic example of how you get a turf toe. He had a hyperextension injury to the toe as he was getting tackled with the defender's weight all on him. So it was a very common way to get this injury. So if it is severe, then I can see why, because it was a classic type of injury mechanism. But again, they're saying 3 months. I think that's very optimistic. This could potentially be season ending.
Well, 3 months is 3/4 of the season, literally. And I think
when I say season ending, I mean extending well beyond the season.
Well, sure. And I get that. And the point that I'm more making is that even if it's the optimistic 3-month timeline that's been reported, and let's just say it's that, we're still talking best case scenario. Joe Burrow's back week 14, week 15. Yep. And then after all that time off, if you're holding on to Joe and you're in redraft leagues, are you really going to trust to play him in your fantasy football playoffs? Because first of all, if you got there, you probably found another option. I don't even know if you trust him, because people were asking me, are you going to put Joe Burrow in the IR? My answer to that was no. I mean, 1 quarterback leagues, redraft, no, I'm probably not going to bother here, because even if he comes back, I don't know that I'm going to trust him for my playoff run at that point. And the only reason they're leaving the door open as an organization is if it's 3 months and if the Bengals, which is a huge if, are actually competing for a playoff spot, they want to keep that door open as a potential possibility. But to your point, it could be slim pickings as far as the odds go with that even happening. Now, here's the good news on a fantasy football front. Jake Browning came in and really didn't skip a beat. It wasn't as if they went to a run-first team. They showed you that even with Jake Browning back there, they're going to be a pass-first and neutral game script, but it does not matter. He had 32 attempts. He had 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. And the turnovers for fantasy, you really don't mind that because that means the other team stays in it, like Jacksonville did in that game, and you have to keep throwing the football. And guys like Jamar Chase have big games anyway. So I'm not overly concerned about this. Yes, it's a little bit of a downgrade for Chase, but not really much of one. He would still stay squarely in my top 3 receivers. I'm a little bit more worried about T. Higgins, who didn't have a great game in this one. That's what would bother me a little bit more so. But Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, I'm not really putting a big downgrade on this. I think that's the good news you can take from fantasy if you have those players. If you have Joe Burrow, maybe you got Indiana Jones. Maybe there's some other options. Hit me up at Dan Mater FF, and I'll try to help you out depending on what's on your league. Let's get into the next quarterback because this one's a little fishy to me. So JJ McCarthy, ankle issue. What do you have there on the medical front?
I'm reading and seeing reports saying high ankle sprain and that he was seen wearing a boot, which is not good, and probably at least out this week, if not possibly several more. As we've talked about high ankle sprains before, they tend to have a little bit longer of a recovery period, sometimes as much as 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the severity. I've seen some reports projecting him being out 2 to 4. So maybe it's a mild high ankle sprain. Even with a mild one, I still kind of tend toward that 4-week mark. But it doesn't look like week 3 is happening. And I don't recall him getting hurt. Was this a practice injury or did this happen in game? I don't recall.
So this is the fishy part that I brought up.
And that's why I ask.
Apparently, this happened during the game. No one who watched the game can pinpoint any point in time when this would have happened because he played through the entire game and at no point looked hindered in any kind of capacity in his mobility. Now, I'm not saying that they made up an injury or trying to go into conspiracy theory here that they're trying to bench JJ McCarthy. I'm not that crazy, but I do think it's a little bit odd that nothing obvious happened. He seemed fine as soon as the bell rang and all of a sudden he's in the boot. And I wonder if this is more of a... He did injure himself, yes. But I wonder if the Vikings are looking at this and like that 2 to 4 week timeline came out pretty quickly. And I do wonder if that's the Vikings saying, you know what, maybe take a seat, young buck, because this offense is not working right now. We'll give it to Carson Wentz as a veteran. You take a few weeks off, nurse that little injury, come on back, and we'll see if we can get a Bryce Young resurgence out of you. We benched you and brought you back kind of deal. It's just a little funny. I don't want to get too off in the weeds, but it's a little funny.
One thing I've always been concerned about with him is actually him coming off of this knee injury that he had that shut him down all last season. That to me is actually more concerning than anything else he's had to deal with in his short career, including this high ankle sprain that mysteriously happened. So maybe they're kind of maybe they're putting up like a mirage over here so that we get distracted by this high ankle injury and maybe it's really his knee. I don't know. That would be the closest thing to conspiracy theory I could come up with because, he had meniscal repair surgery on that knee. Young guy, like that, those surgeries are not an absolute home run, slam dunk. Those surgeries sometimes are very tenuous and can easily be re-injured. So that was something moving forward in his career you always have to be cognizant of if you're going to draft him in your fantasy league. There is the chance that could at some point come up to bite him again. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is what's happening. I'm just throwing that out there. But like you said, I didn't see him get hurt. I watched a lot of that game that he played in this past weekend. So I'm not really sure how that happened.
Yeah, benching that nobody has to jump all over as a result to it. I don't know. I'm just saying. Anyway, as far as the fantasy impact of this goes, it can't be much worse for anybody. You haven't been happy with Justin Jefferson. You haven't been happy with TJ Hawkinson. You haven't really been happy with much of anything on that Minnesota offense through 2 weeks so far of JJ McCarthy. People look at Carson Wentz and they roll their eyes, but the fact is, last time we saw Carson Wentz, albeit it's been a while ago, but he knows how to get the ball at least to his number one weapons. And Kevin O'Connell, outside of JJ McCarthy, has typically been able to make any quarterback viable in getting that ball to the number one weapon. So I actually look at this maybe as an imminent upgrade for the time being, maybe not long-term, but imminent for now, I actually would feel a little bit more comfortable getting a quarterback change here if I have Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. But that's just me. All right, so let's talk about Jayden Daniels dealing with the knee issue. And I know you were on social media about, like, can you guys actually tell me what this injury even is?
Yeah. I mean, I saw the play where they think he got hurt. It looked pretty innocent. And then they said they got an MRI, I think, the following day or Monday or whatever that week was. And then they were saying a knee sprain, which is a very generic term for it's nothing serious, or at least they're trying to make it portray it that way. It sounds like he's day to day. He missed practice, I think, today. Maybe even yesterday. I don't think he's practiced yet this week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be real telling if he does anything at all tomorrow. It doesn't sound like this week is going to happen unless they're going to make him a game time decision. But I think in week 3, man, if you can't get on the field for practice, it's too early in the year for guys to be missing that much practice heading into their game on the weekend. So that to me tells me he's probably not going to play.
It at least tells you he's legitimately dealing with something. And again, we record this show on Thursday night, so we're talking about the Friday practice report when we say today. Yeah. So it tells you he's definitely dealing with something. If he can't go, it is Marcus Mariota at the quarterback position. Now, Mariota in his own right, because he runs, is a streaming option, is a viable replacement for Jayden Daniels. If you need to replace him with somebody, you can actually just pivot to the backup quarterback. Doesn't always work out that way. I do think, when we talked about this on yesterday's show, go back and listen, our start sits of the week in our ranking debates. One of the people asked us, who'd I rather start, Deebo Samuel or Terry McLaurin, which is funny in its own right because you got the two receivers on the same team. Right now, it's not only because Deebo has been better through the first 2 weeks, as McLaurin, I think, is still kind of climbing his way back after not practicing throughout training camp, but he's the one who has the 3.8 ADOT. He's the one who's staying around the line of scrimmage. Everything he's doing is yards after the catch. We all know what Marcus Mariota does. He keeps it close to the line of scrimmage. I don't see this changing as far as how the usage has gone between these two wide receivers. I think you're going to see a healthy amount of Deebo, and Terry McLaurin's hoping for that one big play. McLaurin, somebody already had as a lower-end wide receiver 3 in my ranks. If Jayden Daniels is out, I'm probably going to boost him down to wide receiver 4 territory and tell you don't really need to play him this week in your lineup. So that's something I'm going to watch. But Deebo, I think, is the one that I feel safe with, along with Zach Ertz, if you've been playing him as a low-end tight end 1-2. All right, we still got more quarterback injuries. So Justin Fields, I mean, we already know he got ruled out. That might be the earliest I've ever seen a player get ruled out with a concussion. I mean, that I can think of outside of like Tua.
Yeah, I mean, that happened pretty quick, so it must have been significant. His symptoms must be significant enough that they don't think it's going to clear by the weekends, and so they're just basically ruling him out and not making him push through anything unnecessarily, which is what you want to do with concussion management. He's going to have to clear concussion protocol before he even steps on the field to do anything strenuous. Or well, I shouldn't say that. He's going to have to prove that he can do strenuous activity before he clears concussion protocol. So until we see him out in the practice field, he's going to remain in that protocol. And if he can't even do anything, then that just means it's going to take him longer to recover. So we'll see what happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. If he can get back on the field, do some physically exertional activity, perhaps he can get back to a full practice and then get cleared. But it's a progression kind of thing. You have to demonstrate that you can do very, very limited, very, very easy physical activity first, remain symptom-free before they kind of graduate you to the next step. So it happens in a stepwise fashion, which means he hasn't even started the steps yet. So we're not going to get really much as far as where he's at until next week.
Yeah, and being that they rolled him out so quickly, next week's definitely going to be in question, like you're saying. So Tyrod Taylor comes in, and Tyrod Taylor just every year finds a way to be relevant on our waiver wire in fantasy football. No matter what his situation, no matter where he is, his name always winds up popping up at some point in a season. It's absolutely crazy to me how it actually happens. So with Tyrod coming in, is it a little bit of a downgrade on the Garrett Wilson ceiling? Yes, Justin Fields does have rapport with Garrett Wilson. He will throw a deep ball to him. to give him that little extra pop. Is it a huge downgrade? No. I mean, just based on what Fields did a week ago, it was awful. He had 29 yards, like 3 quarters. It was so bad. Fields isn't quite that bad, but at the same time, like, you can't feel like you're really losing a ton if you have a Garrett Wilson right now. So I feel safe in playing him at least as the top 24 wide receiver heading into this week. Breece Hall, I think this could be a little bit of a step up for Breece Hall. They're going to lean a little bit more on the running game. And Tyrod Taylor, for a running quarterback, actually checks the ball down at a balanced rate, an average rate. Justin Fields doesn't do that. Jalen Hurts doesn't do that. Most rushing quarterbacks don't check the ball down to the running backs very often. A lot of times they like to take off and run in their own right. Tyrod Taylor, especially being he's a veteran now, has no problem dumping the ball off. We've seen this before. So Breece Hall, who's not getting a ton of running room, but clearly is the best running back and still being utilized as the lead back for the Jets after all the fear that we had in the offseason, he might get a couple extra targets in this game. Look out for that. So Breece Hall squarely in my top 24. This doesn't change much for me as far as those guys go. Let's get into Brock Purdy. So this one sounded like it might be trending in a right direction. I don't know. What do you think?
I do think it is. He, I think, had a limited practice session today. He's dealing with 2 issues, the toe and the shoulder issues. But it sounds like he could potentially suit up as either a backup or maybe get some limited game action this weekend. It might be a true game time decision. But we'll see what he does the rest of the week as we get closer to game.
Weight loss solutions are not one size fits all. Hers makes it simpler to get started and stick with a weight loss plan, backed by expert-guided online care that puts your weight loss goals first. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full upfront. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply. Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full upfront. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.
Now, the toe injury he's dealing with is a turf toe variant, so it's not quite as severe as Joe Burrow. A turf toe injury is an actual injury to a distinct structure in and around the great toe. So Joe Burrow, apparently that's what he has, but Brock Purdy has what more commonly people get, which is probably just a sprain or some type of injury in and around the great toe. We automatically assume all the time that it's a turf toe, but a true turf toe is more what Joe Burrow is dealing with and not Brock Purdy. So that's why he's come back so quickly from this toe injury, which of the 2 injuries he's dealing with seems to have been the most significant, which makes sense because you have to plant and push off your foot. If it's your back foot, land and follow through with your front foot. It's important to when you're scrambling and trying to push and change direction. So the toe definitely is more significant than the shoulder typically, depending on what the injuries were, of course. But from what we can surmise from all the reports, it sounds like the toe was the bigger problem of the 2, and now he's making progress. So I think he's going to be a true game time decision. I think if he does get in there, it could be limited action depending on the outcome of the game and how things kind of pan out. or he could be suited up as a backup role with the thinking that he's probably going to be ready full go, no restrictions or anything by week 4. Sorry.
It's a little crazy because his original timeline was 2 to 5 weeks, and now he's missed a week, and now we're already talking about him possibly coming back after Mac Jones performed decently. I grant you, it was the Saints. However, he did perform decently, and I don't know what the rush of bringing Brock Purdy necessarily back after performance from Mac Jones would be. Now, here's what I will say, just on the fantasy side of this thing. If Brock Purdy does play, and I want to ask you this, how effective do you think he would be in his mobility? Because part of while he's not a big dual threat or anything like that, his mobility, not just in rushing production, but his ability to extend the pocket and make those bigger plays is typically when he does. How limited in that would he be?
Well, I think he will be limited because he hasn't really had any game action since he went out, and he hasn't really practiced in full yet. So you have very limited time before that happens, and that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think he's going to be a full go this week. If he does play, I think if he is playing, it'll be limited. They may actually throw him out there and see how he responds and see if he's somewhat limited in his mobility, which that would be the issue. And that's why I think the toe is the more telling injury of the two. Again, not as severe as Joe Burrow, but the fact that they're saying that he's possibly playing, if his toe was bad, they wouldn't even consider it.
Sure. Okay. But my point of that being is that if Purdy doesn't have his mobility to extend plays or even pick up extra rushing yards, he wouldn't be a top 12 play if he does go this week. The only benefit,
honestly, I don't think they're going to put him out there if he shows any signs of favoring that foot. I really don't think they will.
I would be surprised, especially at this point in the season and how the Niners are desperately trying to make sure they stay healthy enough until they get some more guys back in George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. From fantasy standpoint, the only thing Purdy would benefit would be if you have Ricky Pearsall. So what was definitely stood out to me in that Saints game is that Pearsall and Purdy are definitely on the same page. And Pearsall's Purdy's guy. Mac Jones comes in, and even a banged up Jauan Jennings, he's like, Jauan. Now, Purdy, Pearsall didn't have too bad of a game, 4 catches, 56 yards in that matchup, but the big plays and the guy who was getting the first read targets, that was Jauan Jennings. The week before, it was Ricky Pearsall with Brock Purdy. So I do think there's a correlation there. There had been talk all offseason how Pearsall and Purdy were getting together, and really Pearsall's really harping on getting on the same page. So that's where the benefit would be if it's Brock Purdy. Otherwise, I'm not too worried about anybody else with Mac Jones. Christian McCaffrey, it doesn't matter what quarterback you have back there. So the quarterbacks kind of dictate, is it Jauan or is it Pearsall heading into this week that you want to start? That's going to come down to see who plays this Sunday. Okay, so running backs, let's get into that. Aaron Jones, hamstring on the IR. So he's out for definitely 4 weeks. What's your take on this, and what do you expect out of him when he returns?
So 4 games, not 4 weeks, 4 games. I don't know when buys start, but 4 games. So just keep that in mind. That's important. They're saying grade 2. That's at least 4 weeks. Again, this is one of those things, high re-injury rates with hamstrings, how well he gets through his rehab, how much he's able to do when that 21-day window starts, and he's able to start really pushing it on the practice field to test it out. It could extend well beyond the 4 weeks or 4 games. So not good at this stage of the season. This is probably the most important because now you've made it through preseason. You're into week 4. This is like the really the most crucial part of the year as you start going against division rivals. You start building team chemistry. You start getting better conditioning under your belt. And he's not going to be able to do all that. So it's a terrible time to have a hamstring injury. Not that there's ever a good time, but definitely sets you back. And when he does come back, he will be a step slower. He will be a step behind, just in all facets of the game, unfortunately. And so that's why with this, it's going to be at least 4 games, possibly longer than 4 weeks, maybe as much as 6 to 8, depending on, again, bye weeks and how he does with his rehab, but not a good injury at this juncture of the season.
Well, I can give you the rundown. So the earliest Aaron Jones is going to be able to return is going to be week 8 because they do have a bye in week 6. So you have week 3, week 4, week 5, by week 6. Then he still has to miss week 7 because that would be the 4th game. So week 8 is the earliest you're going to get Aaron Jones back. In the meantime, Jordan Mason to the freaking moon. Now he's going to get all the workload. The only thing about Jordan Mason is that even when he came in for Christian McCaffrey a season ago, he was still a non-factor in the receiving game. So you are getting a high-volume rusher. I don't know how involved in the passing game he's really going to be. That has not been his repertoire. I don't know if something's changed or if he's gotten better in that because we haven't really been able to see it yet with him in Minnesota. But even with the rushing he has on an offense that we know Kevin O'Connell can coach, he's still a high-end must-start RB2 for me, and I'm probably sure for everybody else. Okay, so this next one is depressing because this is going to be the last time I talk about this player on the show for this season. And I'm worried it's going to be for the rest of his career. I hope not. But Austin Ekeler blew his Achilles last Thursday. It looked brutal. Yeah. So what is your take on him with his Achilles at this age, at that position?
Not good. Not good at all. Potentially career ending. You lose a lot of power in that leg. You'll lose a lot of your ability to provide explosiveness. And at the running back position, we all know how important that is with just running in general, sprinting, but then, having to cut back and hit holes and take on contact. I mean, it's just a devastating injury. And then you factor in the age. Everything's working against him with this injury, unfortunately.
Really, really is unfortunate. So what does this do fantasy-wise? Not to be callous, because Austin Ekeler is amazing and he's a great, member of the fantasy football community. So, of course, we all extra love him here. But hopefully he can get back. This won't be the end of it, but we'll have to see. In the meantime, Bill Krosky-Merritt is expected to be the lead back. Chris Rodriguez, who's been healthy and active the last 2 weeks, is going to expect to be active in this one. Here's how it was breaking down. So first of all, Bill Krosky-Merritt, even after Austin Ekeler went out, was not very involved, had 4 touches in that game. It looked like they were ready to turn things over to Ekeler. Now, it's surprising considering Krosky-Merritt showed some pop in week 1, but was not really rewarded for in week 2. I don't know what the reasoning behind that was, if there was something in the locker room or a pass protection missed or something along those lines, that we are not privy to that information. But the expectation now, there's no more Ekeler. It's going to have to be Merritt, who looked like the best running back throughout camp. But this just might be a 3-way committee because in the meantime, Jerry McNichols, as soon as Ekeler went out, just assumed the passing role. He took over that entire role that Ekeler had in the passing, the 2-minute drill, long down distance, everything. So if it's going to be Krosky-Merritt, we could see Chris Rodriguez get mixed in on short yardage situations. We could see Jerry McNichols taking all the passing down situations. If you have a 3-headed committee, you're waiting for somebody to bust loose. That is possible. I would say Krosky-Merritt has the best chance to bust loose, but until we get a clear-cut picture, he's nothing more than a mid-level RB3 for me that you don't necessarily have to play depending on your flex options until you see how this is all going to break out, because it could just be a mess. So be aware of that. Don't just be like, oh, Bill Krosky-Merritt to the moon. Maybe think about it. Maybe have some other options at your table, because this could go a lot of different ways there right now in that Washington backfield. Last running back I want to talk about, Zach Charbonnet popped up with a foot issue, didn't practice on Wednesday. What were you able to find out?
Not much. Reports were kind of scant, and I couldn't find any details about the specific nature of his injury. It's likely some type of sprain. It sounds like he's already carrying a questionable tag heading into the weekend. So what he does between today, being Thursday, and Friday, heading into the game, we'll have to see. Definitely one of those ones you want to pay attention the morning of the game when the final rosters have to be in. Usually it's 90 minutes before kickoff, so certainly somebody to watch and see where they end up last minute, because I don't think we're going to get much more information until then.
Well, and he might be a game time decision. And keep in mind with Seattle, I got to check what the time that game is, but they're typically playing on the 4:00 hour here. But he didn't practice today either. So it's 2 days in a row where he hasn't practiced, and they play at 4:00 against the Saints. So 2 days in a row, non-practice. At best case scenario, he's a kickoff decision. The only thing I would say is the silver lining is that maybe this explains why, or at least a little bit why, he had 15 carries for 10 yards, because that was abysmal this past Sunday. So you're hoping, well, maybe it wasn't all just him playing badly while Kenneth Walker went crazy. But with him being banged up and Kenneth Walker having a great game, let's say Charbonnet's even active, it should be the Kenneth Walker show this week. And this could be what Walker fans who drafted him are hoping for in some ways. Not that Charbonnet gets hurt, but the opportunity for Walker to kind of reestablish himself as the number one guy, because so far Charbonnet's outsnapped him 2 weeks in a row. So Walker gets locked in as a top 20 play, of course, this weekend. Against the Saints, he could even be a top 10 play with his ceiling upside if Charbonnet can't go and he's getting that bulk of the work. Keep your eyes on this, though. If Charbonnet does go, I would probably keep him on your bench. He was already kind of in that RB, that high in RB3 territory as it is, because he was in a committee with Walker and where the usage is going to go. Probably look for better options, even if he is active in this one. Let's go to the wide receivers. Xavier Worthy, shoulder. We're getting some progress, though. So what do you think?
Yeah, he's going to be week to week. It really is going to come down to how he feels and whether he thinks he's ready. He had an MRI after he had that shoulder dislocation. I think it did show a labral tear, but that's not unexpected to find after a shoulder dislocation. It was a one-time traumatic dislocation at his age. That's usually not anything that necessarily requires immediate surgery. He's not having any stability issues. He's been seen wearing some type of protective brace for his shoulder, and that will limit some of his range of motion, which may make it tough for him to catch passes at a higher level. So I think once he feels comfortable with that and some of that soreness dissipates, we'll get a better sense of whether he's going to be ready. I'm not so sure they're going to throw him out there this weekend. I don't think he's quite there yet. It could be next week. That's more realistic to me, but they're saying he's week to week, so he's probably going to be carrying a questionable tag until we get him back to full.
Yeah, and people are just waiting for it. So I made a bad call. I said, look, I think Hollywood Brown's going to get a hell of a target share and be a top 24 play with no Xavier Worthy last week. That did not happen. The Eagles defense is good, but my God, there's something broken right now in that Chiefs offense, and they got to get it figured out. It's brutal. Having said that, they play your team, the Giants, this week. So I'm going to double down and say, while the Giants have a better defense than I think people realize, it's mostly in their front seven. It's not in their back four. So I do think that's the area where you can take advantage of that defense. If Xavier Worthy does play, I have him ranked as if he will right now. I only have him as a wide receiver 36, so a low-end wide receiver 3. Coming back from the shoulder injury, the offense doesn't look quite right. I can't expect a big median projection out of an Xavier Worthy heading into this week. Having said that, if he's out, Hollywood Brown will probably crack my top 30, meaning I'm most likely playing him and going for it again this week. I may not be as bullish as put him inside my top 24, but he will be my top 30, which means you probably should be in your lineup anyway, whether it be a flex or a wide receiver 3, depending upon your lineups. Someone's got to catch the ball, and it should be an easier time this week against the Giants, I would suspect. Jauan Jennings, so he had a shoulder. Now he has an ankle issue. What would he got there?
Again, not much. That kind of popped up out of nowhere. Whether I couldn't remember which one was first, to be honest with you.
The shoulder is first.
Okay. He's day to day. One of those ones you just have to kind of keep an eye on things and see what he does in practice. But regardless, I don't think either of them are serious. The shoulder one, you are correct. I think we talked about that during the preseason, if I'm not mistaken.
We talked about it last week.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that before, so I don't know what the ankle thing is going on. As far as the shoulder goes, I think this is something that might follow him throughout the year, because I think he was even dealing with this last season at some point. It sounds like it's just a acute on chronic kind of thing that may pop up from time to time, nothing that is serious enough that it's going to shut him down for an extended period of time, but it seems like it's a nagging, recurring thing, because I think he did deal with some issues with his shoulder last season as well, and then we talked about it a few weeks ago. I think I even talked about this during the preseason when it came to him, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not on your show, Dan, maybe on some of the other shows I do, but the shoulder thing, again, they haven't been very forthright with what's going on, so we don't have a lot of detail. Some people were speculating that it was an AC joint sprain that keeps happening or never quite fully healed. But other than that, I don't really have much else.
Well, here's what I have for you. I do remember when that play happened, because it happened in the first half in the second quarter, and he was real banged up. Came out in the second half and had the big play and blew up. And like I said, Mac Jones was number one target. So he was able to get through it that game. Now, as a medical professional, especially with ankle injuries, sometimes in the moment you can get through things that then swell up and get worse the next couple of days. So quite possible there. Here's what I can tell you. He didn't practice yesterday and he didn't practice on Thursday. Whether he practiced Friday or not, it's going to go a long way. Keep this in mind. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday last week, practiced in limited capacity on Friday and still played. Remember, the extension he signed is a $3 million incentive based on playing time. So if he can even remotely go, he's going to try to go.
Yeah.
So we'll keep that in mind.
He might have cursed himself with that contract because as soon as he signed it, he's been banged up.
And find ways to play through it, but your body can only play through so much.
So another guy that is in a similar situation that we didn't put on the list tonight, real quick, I'll just mention is Mooney over in Atlanta. Been dealing with a shoulder issue. His shoulder issue also goes back to last year. He was dealing with it in preseason. He was limited in action, then suited up and played last week, but it looks like he's going to be, again, questionable heading into this weekend. So another guy to keep an eye on. I have him on my fantasy team. I had him start. That was probably not a smart move on my part. He didn't do much at all.
Outside of Bijan Robinson, and we did get confirmation it is Bijan again. No one did much in that Sunday night game anyway. So don't feel bad. I had Drake London. And I'm sitting there like, where are my targets? My goodness. But I just double piggyback real quick to Jauan Jennings. If he plays, again, we're talking about high in wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 territory, decent match against Arizona, but I'm not like he needs injuries stacking up. So that's why I'm not going to have him any higher than that. Josh Downs, he's dealing with an ankle issue. What do you got there?
He actually returned to practice today from some of the reports I saw, if that's true. And he's trending toward available this weekend. So it sounds like it wasn't a serious issue. I did not see the injury because I cannot watch the Colts with Daniel Jones going 2-0.
What a game that was. What a game that was.
After all the stuff that happened while he was in New York, I just can't. Sounds like it's nothing serious. He should be ready to go. He'll probably be bandaged up and taped up, but given his kind of style of play and his more short range passes from Daniel Jones, I don't think this is going to affect him so much that he shouldn't be fantasy relevant.
Yeah, and to the extent that he even is, I mean, so Daniel Jones is playing really well, but it's been a super spreader offense outside of Tyler Warren. Like Tyler Warren is the only pass catcher right now that you can trust. We're going to talk about him though in a second, as far as the target share goes. Because Pittman and Josh Downs and Alec Pierce have all been kind of getting sprinkled in here and there. And I expected Josh Downs to be more of a primary target. While I love Tyler Warren and knew he was a talented beast, I didn't know he's going to quite hit the ground running in this fashion this early. So that's been a big part of it. So Josh Downs more of a mid-level wide receiver 4, maybe towards wide receiver 5 territory, only playing him in full PPR leagues. If frankly, I don't have better options. And in 12-man leagues, I'm going to assume you probably have a better option. I am in a 14-team league where I am hoping he plays because I actually need him. That's a 14-team league, but that's a different type of story. Here's a big one for this weekend. Emeka Egbuka, hip and groin, has not practiced the last 2 days. What's going on?
Yeah, I have him on one of my rosters too, so I'm a little concerned myself. It sounds like it's some type of hip adductor or groin strain. He didn't participate Wednesday or Thursday. Friday will be telling. Doesn't sound good. He's a young, rookie receiver. I think they're going to kind of treat him with kid gloves and make sure he's right before they send him back out there. I have a bad feeling that we're not going to see him this week. Hopefully, we'll see him the following week, but we won't know that necessarily until we get through this weekend. But it doesn't look good at this stage.
Yeah, I'm kind of trending towards I don't know if he's going to play in this one. So if you have Mike Evans, you can be looking at this like, oh, finally, like Mike Evans is not being getting targeted the way you would want him to because Emeka Egbuka has been that good through the first 2 weeks, right? So you would expect him. He does get a little bit of a bump if Emeka can't play. On the flip side, Sterling Shepard becomes a sneaky little streamer because he has been involved in the routes anyway. He would take on that role. Maybe even Cade Ott would get a couple more targets, but still not enough for him to crack my top 16, which is where you need to be a tight end. So that's kind of how that shakes out for now. But man, you don't want to see it when a guy has been off to the hot start as a rookie that he has been. So we'll keep our eyes on that. I think we got a positive development on this player today or on Thursday. Ladd McConkey dealing with an arm issue.
Yeah, some reports said it was like a biceps thing. I'm not really sure if that means like a strain or maybe he got like a deep contusion to the bicep, but he did practice wearing a brace in full today, so that's a good sign. I don't think this is going to be a game absence for him this weekend. I think we'll see him in there.
Okay, well, that is good news. That's what it was starting to sound like, too. So let's just go to the tight ends. Tyler Warren, who I was talking about. Yeah. A toe. Another freaking toe. What is happening? Toes.
I don't know. I think it's just coincidence. I'm not sure if they can attribute it to the turf or anything else like that. He missed Wednesday, but then returned in a limited fashion today. We'll see what he can do tomorrow. The problem with this is that for most teams on Fridays, it's just like a simple walkthrough. They don't really do much. It's not very high paced or high energy. It's not contact typically. So it's really hard to gauge whether guys are ready if they're not practicing in full on Thursday. And then, that's a lot of times it's because of travel schedules and just getting everything ready for the weekend games and traveling to their destinations, wherever they're playing. So Fridays tend to be a very slow walkthrough day where you don't really get much information. You can't really gauge whether the players are ready. And I have a feeling Tyler Warren is going to fall in that boat tomorrow or Friday. We're not going to necessarily see him doing much then, and we're not going to know if he's ready, even if he does practice in full. So this could be a true game time decision, but the fact that he went from no practice to a limited practice tells me it's probably nothing serious. He could be a game time decision. He's probably going to have a questionable tag unless he's completely off the injured list on Friday.
So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that on Friday. Big one, because Tyler Warren's already established himself as a top 3 tight end when George Kittle banged up. Brock Bowers kind of underperforming a little bit, and Trey McBride, Kyler Murray is a whole other conversation for another day. Dallas Goedert knee issue. What's he got?
Yeah, I'm not, again, sure what his issue is. I think it's some type of sprain. They haven't really said for sure. He did have a limited practice on Thursday, but they've been capping his sessions at like a certain, I guess, limit of plays and limit of drills and all that stuff. So he hasn't really had a full day as of today, our recording here. So if he can get a Friday session in, that's definitely in the positive direction. He could be another true game time decision with the questionable tag. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious. I haven't seen reports saying it's anything serious, but Dallas Goedert has dealt with some significant injuries throughout his career. Nothing recent that I can recall off the top of my head, but I again, another guy just to keep an eye on and have a backup plan in place.
He's never played a full season. Every single year he misses a handful of games, plain and simple. But when he is on the field, he is the guy who hangs around that like 10 to 14 area, making himself relevant in fantasy football. It's never real pretty. You never feel great about it. But there's a different element to this story. Dallas Goedert didn't play last week. And I get it's the Chiefs. Chiefs do have a very good defense. But if you had Devonta Smith, you had A.J. Brown, and there was no Dallas Goedert on the field, when those guys typically go off is when that target consolidation happens. I talk about offenses being broken. Now, because the Eagles have Saquon and Jalen Hurts who can just run the ball, it doesn't look as bad as the Chiefs, who have to lean on Patrick Mahomes throwing it to receivers who can't get open. But they don't look right either. Plain and simple. That passing attack, the concepts, play calling, changing it out after losing Kellen Moore, it doesn't look right. And they're not taking their play action. I talked about this the other day. They are not taking their play action shots down the field off of that running game that made that offense a weapon. They didn't throw the ball a ton last year. They ran the ball the most in the entire NFL. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith were still excellent because they took those shots. The Eagles aren't doing that. The Eagles are playing like a Chiefs-level passing a concept with a team that's run first. That's not good for fantasy. So I'm more worried about this team schematically than I am about anybody getting any kind of target consolidation right now. I think A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are too talented to bench, especially this early in the season. But something's got to change there. Otherwise, we might have all overhyped the Eagles offense in its entirety. Red flags for me. I don't even want to talk about this guy, but I'll just mention him. Evan Engram.
Well, I don't want to talk about him.
Yeah, I know.
Wasn't he on here? Weren't we talking about him for a calf issue like a week ago or 2 weeks ago?
Last week, but I honestly don't even remember what that issue. I know it wasn't a back issue. I know this is a new one.
I think he had a calf strain or something.
Yeah. So
I don't know. He missed multiple practices this week. He's trending toward questionable. Again, what he does on a Friday is probably... But this guy's often injured. He was injured when he was with the Giants all the time. He's been injured since he left the Giants. I don't know, man. I still don't understand why he's so fantasy relevant. I know he's got the tools. there to be an impact player in a fantasy world, but I've never wanted to or even made a hesitation about clicking his name on my draft board. So I don't really have anything positive to say. We'll have to just see what happens with him, but he's probably going to be questionable.
Here's what's clear. Regardless of the injury, he's not the Joker position. That's what's very clear. So the big popular pickup this past week was Troy Franklin. And I get it to some degree. First of all, the first couple of weeks of the football season, rare is it that you're ever getting good value on the waiver wire. That's more during the bye weeks and mid-season when people have to make drops that they don't want to make because of those bye weeks and maybe because they have a couple injured guys on top of it and you get roster constraints. So you will still go pick up Troy Franklin. What I would say here is I caution people on this. Outside of Cortland Sutton, nobody has a set role in that offense. It could be Marvin Mims next week. Pat Bryant could get worked in. Sean Payton is just a menace when it comes to fantasy football, whether it's the running back, the backfield, everyone's waiting on RJ Harvey. That hasn't happened, and he seems to be losing more work. Again, the J.K. Dobbins was barely involved last week. Or what happens outside the number one target in the receiving game. What I'm saying is that you basically can't predict it. I'm okay if you picked up Troy Franklin. I wouldn't be shocked if you wanted turning around and dropping him next week because somebody else got involved, though. Last but certainly not least, because this was my number one tight end coming into the week, Tucker Kraft had a knee issue in Thursday's practice.
Yeah.
Were you able to find out anything? Because they were still scrambling to see what the severity was.
Yeah, well, multiple reports have said that the team has evaluated him. I think he's scheduled to undergo some more testing tomorrow, Friday, but that they're saying it doesn't appear to be anything long-term. So I guess you can take that for what you want. That doesn't tell me much because long-term means long-term, but it doesn't mean not short-term either. So it could be that a week or two, if it's a mild little sprain. Hopefully it's nothing serious. We'll definitely have more as we get closer to the weekend here, as we get closer to game time. It doesn't sound good in the sense that it was significant enough that he had to come out of practice. He was being evaluated on the sideline, brought into the locker room, and multiple reports I've read have said that he will undergo more tests. So that usually means some type of more advanced imaging, like an MRI. What that shows will then kind of dictate what he does or does not do going forward, and whether or not he's down for multiple weeks or just a few days. So couldn't come at a worse time. Thursday's not when you want to be getting hurt again, because Fridays usually are just a simple walkthrough, a lot of film, a lot of preparation for game day. It's not usually too strenuous, so you're not going to really have a chance to test it out per se until game day. So if they do get a scan and it doesn't show any major structural injuries, then it's really going to be a matter of how comfortable he feels on game day. And again, that's going to take you down to the wire. So he'll probably at the very least have a questionable tag unless that MRI comes back and shows something significantly wrong that they need to address.
Jayden Reed out 6 to 8 weeks, and now Tucker Kraft getting hurt in practice. Maybe he won't be out for multiple weeks, even if he does miss Sunday, but not what you wanted to see. If you're going to ask me, okay, well, they're dropping like flies. Who's next up in that Packers offense? I don't know. Good luck to you. I know I'm supposed to give you better advice to that, but it's been such a roulette wheel anyway. In all seriousness, here's my actual advice. And I said it yesterday's show. Romeo Doubs is established in his role, so you can play him. He's a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4, with maybe an uptick in targets between Jayden Reed and if Tucker Kraft were to miss this week. But we know he kind of has a ceiling limit. Davian Wicks looks like the second best wide receiver to me on that team right now. Now, without Jayden Reed, maybe Matthew Golden fits more of that role, and so he gets kind of more designed touches, and he has played a little bit more than Davian Wicks, but he does not look like the better wide receiver. Wicks looks like he's better to me than he was a season ago, and he looks better than Golden now. I do think Wicks will take on the bigger role, and if you want to take a shot in DFS, which is what I'm doing, I'm taking a shot on Davian Wicks at $3,700. Maybe throw on your bench, see what happens. But we've been trying to wait and see what happens with the Packers offense ever since Matt LaFleur took over. So who knows? I'm not going to put it out there and put a stamp on any one guy. With that, it's going to wrap up the show, though. Brian, I want to thank you so much for coming on. As always, tell people where they need to check you out and where to follow you.
Well, first of all, it's my pleasure, Dan. You know I love doing your show. Probably the most thorough update you'll find anywhere when it comes to injuries. And don't forget, I'm just using the stuff that we all read in the press and the media as well. So nothing behind the scenes here. It's just using my knowledge over the last 20-something years, kind of help guide you guys about what to do when your fantasy relevant players get injured. With that said, you can find me on Dan's show every Thursday. You can find me, we record on Thursday. You can find me on That Sports Podcast Network with TSS Fantasy Friday nights and Sunday mornings right before kickoff. And then next week, I'm actually doing a nice special appearance with Deb Wickus of the Blonde Blitz, which is an amazing show. Deb's an Emmy-winning producer. She's awesome. She's got a lot of contacts within the NFL. She's going to be having some NFL guys on, I believe, to talk football on that show. And so check that out. I don't do that show very often. We usually get together every couple weeks, so that would be cool. We're going to try and do a little more going forward this season, so check that out. And then, of course, I got my tag there, Injured List Pod on X, the Injured List Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and the website, theinjuredlist.com.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Brian, love having you on. I can't wait to have you on again next week. We're going to be back tomorrow with Jazz Florida Sports Betting Weekly to talk about our best bets of the weekend. We had a hell of a week too, let me tell you. So not only helping you win fantasy football matchups, but lining your pockets green too. Make sure you download Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and check out our video content on the YouTube channel, the Fantasy Football Advice Network at FF Advice Net. Until then, we'll see you.